Chapter 1. The Unseen Crack. The first sign arrived like a whisper in a crowded cathedral. Subtle, yet impossible to ignore once noticed. It began with David's laughter, that warm, rumbling sound that had once been my favorite melody. But now, when it echoed through our home, it carried a different note, a brightness, an intimacy that seemed directed at someone else. I dismissed it initially. Paranoia, I told myself. The stress of his new position at Harrington Thorne was making him irritable, distant. But the laughter persisted, always when she was around. I'm Eleanor Claire Whitmore, 36 years old, 11 years married to David Marcus Whitmore, my college sweetheart who'd memorized the poetry I loved and proposed under the stars during a meteor shower. We'd built a life in our craftsman-style home with its wraparound porch and the garden I'd planted with roses and lavender. We'd planned for children, saved for vacations, and welcomed David's foster sister, Sophia, into our home when she aged out of the system at 18. Sophia, 23 now, with wild dark curls, eyes the color of storm clouds, and a vulnerability that made everyone want to protect her, including me, especially me. David had taken Sophia in when she was 14, after her third foster placement failed. Their bond was immediate, intense, more like siblings than foster brother and sister. I'd admired his dedication, his capacity to love this damaged girl as family. When Sophia moved in with us permanently after her 18th birthday, I'd welcomed her. I helped her apply to college, taught her to cook, held her during nightmares about her abusive childhood. She became the sister I'd never had. But 6 months ago, something shifted. David started working late. Sophia began withdrawing, spending hours in her room with the door closed. Their conversations became hushed, secretive. I told myself it was normal. Sophia was struggling in her pre-med program. David was under pressure at work. But the signs accumulated like evidence in a case I was building against my own peace of mind. The second sign was David's phone. Always screened down, always charging in his home office instead of our bedroom. The third was Sophia's perfume on his collar one evening, jasmine and sandalwood, her signature scent. When I asked, he laughed. Sophia hugged me goodbye before her night class. You're imagining things, Ellie. But I wasn't. The fourth sign came during our anniversary dinner. David was distracted, checking his phone under the table. When I asked who he was texting, he said, "Work. Henderson needs those figures tonight." But when I glanced at his screen as he put it down, I saw a message preview. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Our place." The contact name was labeled work, but the tone was intimate, familiar. My blood ran cold. Expanded backstory sensory details. I first met David in Professor Albright's modern poetry seminar. He sat 2 rows ahead, his shoulders broad even at 20, his hands gesturing emphatically as he debated the merits of Sylvia Plath versus Anne Sexton. When he turned to respond to a comment I'd made, his eyes caught mine. Hazel flecked with gold, intelligent and warm. After class, he walked me to the library, our conversation flowing from poetry to politics to our shared dream of making a difference in the world. By our third date, he'd memorized my favorite Mary Oliver poem. By our sixth, he'd confessed his foster care background, how he'd aged out at 18 with nothing but a duffel bag and determination. Sophia entered our lives 5 years into our marriage. David received a call from Child Protective Services. His former foster sister, Sophia, needed emergency placement after her third foster home collapsed. "She's 14, Ellie," David said, his voice tight with emotion. "No one else will take her. The system's failing her." I saw the desperation in his eyes, the echoes of his own trauma. "Of course she can stay," I said, without hesitation. When Sophia arrived, she was all sharp angles and wary eyes, thin from neglect, with a bruise yellowing her cheekbone. That first night, she woke screaming from a nightmare. I held her as she trembled, whispering that she was safe now, that David and I would protect her. She clung to me like a drowning child, and in that moment, I understood. This fragile girl had become my sister, too. The shift, expanded timeline. The changes began subtly last autumn. Sophia started her junior year of pre-med, her course load brutal. David was promoted to senior VP at Harrington Thorne, his hours lengthening. I attributed their closeness to shared stress. David began mentoring Sophia through her organic chemistry struggles. Late-night study sessions at the dining table, their heads bent over textbooks. I'd bring them tea, proud of their dedication. But then came the night I found them asleep on the sofa. Sophia curled against David's chest, his arm wrapped protectively around her. Something about the intimacy of the pose unsettled me. When I mentioned it later, David waved it off. She had a panic attack about an exam, Ellie. Fell asleep while I was calming her down. Sophia avoided my gaze for days. The signs. Detailed accumulation. October. David started leaving his wedding ring in his gym bag because it scratches during weights. November. Sophia began wearing David's old college sweatshirts around the house. They're comfy, she said when I asked. December. David bought Sophia a gold necklace for Christmas identical to one he'd given me years earlier. It's a sister gift, he insisted when I froze. January. I found David's phone unlocked on the counter. A text from work. Miss your hands on me. I confronted him. He claimed it was an autocorrect fail from a colleague named Marcus. February, Sophia withdrew from our weekly movie nights. Too much studying, she'd mumble, retreating to her room. March, I noticed David showering immediately after coming home, even when he hadn't been to the gym. April, the jasmine perfume incident. May, the anniversary dinner text. Internal monologue. Deepened. As I sat alone in our garden after the anniversary dinner, the roses I'd planted seemed to mock me. Their thorns pricked my fingers as I dead-headed them, drawing blood. You're being ridiculous, I told myself. David loves you. Sophia adores you. This is stress, paranoia. But the evidence mounted like stones in a wall I was building around my heart. Each lie, each evasion, each suspicious moment was another stone. Soon the wall felt impenetrable. I remembered David's proposal, how he'd knelt in the rain, holding a ring he'd saved 2 years to buy. You're my safe harbor, Ellie, he'd said. Now that harbor felt storm-tossed, its buoys unmoored. And Sophia, my sister, my project, my heart, was she the storm? Or was she being swept away in it too? Chapter 2. The Unraveling. Over the following weeks, I became a detective in my own home. I noticed David showering immediately after coming home, as if washing away evidence. Sophia started wearing perfume I'd never seen before, expensive brands that appeared in her closet without explanation. Their sibling hugs lasted too long, their hands lingering on each other's arms. One night, I woke at 3 a.m. to find David's side of the bed empty. Downstairs, I heard soft voices in the living room. I crept to the top of the stairs, my heart pounding. David and Sophia sat close on the sofa, their heads together, speaking in low tones. We have to be careful, David murmured. She's starting to suspect. Sophia rested her head on his shoulder. I hate lying to her. After everything she's done for me. I retreated to our bedroom, my body trembling. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. But that day, I went to the bank and withdrew cash from our emergency fund. I hired a private investigator, Marcus Reed, a former cop with kind eyes and a reputation for discretion. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said gently when we met in his downtown office, "are you sure you want to do this? Once you know, you can't unknow." "I need the truth," I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Whatever it costs." 3 weeks later, Marcus delivered a thick envelope. Inside were photographs that shattered my world. David and Sophia entering a boutique hotel downtown. David kissing Sophia in the hotel elevator, their silhouettes against the window of what appeared to be a rented apartment. The final blow was a USB drive with audio recordings. I listened in my car, parked in an empty lot, as David's voice filled the space. "I've loved you since you were 16, Sophia." I tried to fight it, but I can't anymore. Sophia's reply, "I never thought you'd see me as more than your little sister, but when you kissed me last Christmas..." I threw up in a nearby bush, the acid burning my throat. 11 years of marriage, 5 years of opening my home to Sophia, loving her, protecting her, all built on a foundation of lies. The investigation, detailed process. Marcus Reed's office smelled of old coffee and paper. He sat behind a desk cluttered with case files, his kind eyes assessing me. "Walk me through everything," he said, opening a fresh notebook. For 2 hours, I detailed every suspicion, every lie, every gut feeling. He asked precise questions. When exactly did the behavior change? What specific phrases did David use? Did Sophia have any friends or activities outside the home? He took notes in a precise, angular script. The investigation began with surveillance. Marcus parked down the street for days, documenting David's routines. The first report showed David leaving work at 6 p.m., stopping at a florist, then driving to a residential area, not our neighborhood. Marcus followed him to a modern apartment building. David entered, emerging 40 minutes later. The next day, Marcus obtained security footage showing David entering with Sophia. They were holding hands. Financial records revealed David had opened a secret credit card. Charges included L'Etoile Restaurant, $487, Jewelry Boutique, $1,200, Weekend Hotel Stays, $350 night, Victoria's Secret, $289. All charges occurred on weeknights when David claimed to be working late. The audio recordings were the final blow. Marcus had planted a discreet listening device in David's car during a routine maintenance visit. The captured conversations included David: "I can't keep pretending with Ellie. Every time she touches me, I think of you." Sophia: "But she's been so good to me. How can we do this to her?" David: "We'll be careful. Soon we'll tell her we're in love. She'll understand eventually." Sophia: "What if she hates me forever?" David: "She'll get over it. We belong together, Soph. Always have." Eleanor's psychological breakdown expanded. The night I received the evidence, I drove to the lakefront park where David proposed. I sat on the same bench where he'd slipped the ring on my finger, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. The lake's waves crashed against the shore, relentless and cold, mirroring the storm inside me. I played the recordings through my car speakers, David's voice, once the sound of safety, now a weapon. Each word was a physical blow. "I've loved you since you were 16. Sophia was 16 when she came to us. David was 30. My mind raced through memories. David teaching Sophia to drive, his hand lingering on hers. Sophia falling asleep on his shoulder during movie nights. The way David looked at her when he thought no one was watching. I'd dismissed it as brotherly concern. It was something else entirely. I vomited until my stomach was empty, then sat shaking on the cold ground. The betrayal wasn't just sexual, it was a complete annihilation of our family's foundation. David had exploited his position as Sophia's guardian, foster brother, husband. Sophia had betrayed the sisterhood I'd offered unconditionally. The complexity of the pain was staggering. I wasn't just losing a husband. I was losing the sister I'd chosen, the brother-in-law I'd trusted, the very concept of family I'd built. Flashbacks deepened. Sophia's arrival day, David carrying Sophia's duffel bag, her trembling hand in his. "This is Ellie," he said. "She's going to be your sister now." Sophia's eyes, wide with fear and hope, meeting mine. I hugged her, feeling her ribs beneath her thin shirt. "Welcome home," I whispered. Thanksgiving 2018. Sophia burned the turkey. David laughed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's okay, Soph. We'll order pizza." I watched them, thinking how lucky Sophia was to have David. How lucky I was to have them both. Sophia's high school graduation, David whooping louder than anyone as Sophia crossed the stage. Later at dinner, he toasted, "To my brilliant sister, I'm so proud of you." Sophia beamed, her eyes shining. I squeezed her hand under the table. Last Christmas, David giving Sophia the necklace. "For my amazing sister," he said, kissing her cheek. I'd felt a flicker of something jealousy, but dismissed it. Now I understood. That kiss wasn't fraternal. The necklace wasn't sisterly. I'd been blind. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. I waited until David came home that evening. Sophia was at the library, supposedly studying. I sat in the living room, the envelope on the coffee table before me like an accusation. "Ellie?" David called as he entered. "You're up late." He stopped short when he saw me, saw the envelope. His face paled. "What's this?" "The truth," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Or rather, evidence of your lies." He sank into the armchair opposite me, his hands shaking. "Ellie, I can explain..." "Explain what?" I stood, my anger finally breaking through the numbness. "Explain how you've been sleeping with your foster sister, how you've been lying to me for months, how you've destroyed our marriage, our family, everything we built." "Sophia and I, we didn't plan this," he stammered. "It just happened. The connection between us." "Connection?" I laughed, the sound harsh and broken. "She's your sister, David. Your foster sister. You raised her. You brought her into our home. I took care of her when she had nightmares. I helped her with her homework. I loved her like family." "It's not like that," he insisted, tears welling in his eyes. "We're not blood related. We met when she was 14. There was nothing inappropriate until recently." "Until recently?" I screamed, my control finally snapping. "You've been fantasizing about her since she was 16. That's not love, David. That's predation. That's betrayal on every conceivable level." The front door opened. Sophia entered, dropping her backpack by the door. "David? Ellie? What's going on?" She saw us, saw the envelope, and her face went white. "Oh, God." "Did you know?" I demanded, turning to her. "Did you know he'd been in love with you since you were 16? Sophia looked at David, then back at me, her eyes wide with panic. "He told you that?" "I have proof," I said, throwing the photographs at her feet. "Hotels, apartments, audio recordings." "How long, Sophia? How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" She began to cry, great heaving sobs that might have moved me once. "I'm so sorry, Ellie. We never meant to hurt you." "Don't you dare apologize," I shouted. "You lived in my house. You ate my food. You let me care for you while you were sleeping with my husband behind my back. That's not a mistake. That's a calculation." David stood, reaching for me. "Ellie, please, let's talk about this. We can go to counseling." I stepped back, my disgust absolute. There is no we anymore. There is no counseling. There is no fixing this. I want you both out of my house. Tonight. The confrontation, detailed dialogue, blocking. David's entrance was jarringly normal. He hung his keys on the hook by the door, loosened his tie, smiled when he saw me. "Hey, beautiful. Working late?" His smile faltered when he saw the envelope. His eyes tracked to it, then to my face. An understanding dawned slow, then all at once. His skin went from tan to ashen. The confident set of his shoulders collapsed inward. "Ellie?" His voice was hoarse. Sit down, David." My voice was eerily calm. I hadn't felt this detached since my mother's funeral. He sank into the leather armchair we'd bought together on our 5th anniversary. The one he'd insisted was an investment in our comfort. The irony wasn't lost on me. I slid the envelope across the coffee table. It stopped inches from his trembling hand. "Open it." He hesitated, then picked it up as if it might bite. The photographs spilled out, David and Sophia entering the hotel, their bodies angled intimately toward each other. David kissing Sophia in the elevator, his hand on her waist, their silhouettes against a window, unmistakably entwined. David's breath hitched. "Ellie, this isn't..." "The audio, David! Play the audio!" I pointed to the USB drive. His hands shook as he plugged it into his laptop. Sophia's voice filled the room. "I never thought you'd see me as more than your little sister." David slammed the laptop shut. "Explain," I demanded, standing over him. My shadow fell across his face. He looked up, tears welling. "It's not what you think." "What?" "That you've been fucking your foster sister behind my back? That you've been lying to me for months? That you've destroyed our family? What part isn't what I think, David?" Sophia's arrival was a catalyst. The door opened, her cheerful, "I'm home!" dying in her throat as she took in the scene. The photographs scattered like fallen leaves. David's devastated face. My towering rage. Her backpack hit the floor with a thud. "Ellie? David? What's happening?" Her voice was small, childlike. I turned on her. "What's happening?" "You happened, Sophia. You and David. Behind my back. In my house. With my trust." Sophia's face crumpled. "No. I didn't mean..." "Didn't mean what?" I screamed, stepping toward her. "Didn't mean to sleep with my husband? Didn't mean to betray the only person who ever treated you like family? Didn't mean to destroy everything?" David grabbed my arm. "Ellie, stop! You're upsetting her." I wrenched free. "Upsetting her? What about me, David? What about the wife you've been lying to? The sister you've been manipulating?" Sophia collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, Ellie. We never meant." "We?" Stino, I laughed, the sound ugly. "There's no we here. There's you, and there's him, and there's the wreckage of what you've done." David tried again. "Ellie, please, we can go to counseling. We can fix this." "Fix this?" I whispered, the rage draining away, leaving only cold certainty. "David, you can't fix betrayal. You can't fix predation. You can't fix the fact that you've been grooming your foster sister since she was 16. There is no fixing this. There's only ending it." I looked at Sophia, hunched and crying on my sofa. "Get out. Both of you, tonight. Take what you can carry. The rest, I'll box up for you." David's face contorted. "Ellie, where will we go? Sophia has exams. That's not my problem anymore." My voice was flat, final. "You should have thought about that before you started fucking my sister." Sophia's perspective, added scene. After they left, I found Sophia's journal on her nightstand. I shouldn't have read it, but I needed to understand. The entries revealed her confusion, guilt, and twisted love. Sept 15. David hugged me today after my exam failed. He held me so tight. For a second I thought, but that's crazy. He's my brother. Ellie's husband. Aug 3. David kissed me tonight. Just a peck on the forehead after I had a nightmare. But it felt different. His hands lingered. I feel sick. Nov 12. We kissed. Really kissed. I was crying about my biomom again. He held me and then... It just happened. I hate myself. But I've never felt so loved. So seen. Deck 25. Ellie loved the necklace David gave me. If she only knew. He kissed me under the mistletoe when she was in the kitchen. I feel like I'm living a double life. John 30. David says we need to tell Ellie soon. He loves me. He wants to be with me. I'm terrified she'll hate me forever. But I can't lose David. He's the only person who's never left me. The entries painted a picture of a vulnerable girl, starved for affection, manipulated by the one person she trusted completely. It didn't excuse her betrayal, but it complicated my anger with a profound sadness. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. They left that night with suitcases and excuses. Sophia cried, David pleaded, but I remained unmoved. I called my sister, Rebecca, who arrived with wine and a fury that matched my own. The absolute nerve, she fumed, handing me a glass. After everything you did for that girl. I trusted them, I whispered, staring at the wall. I loved them. How could I not see? Because you're not a monster, Ellie, Rebecca said, squeezing my hand. You couldn't imagine someone being that cruel. The next weeks were a blur of the legal consultations and emotional breakdowns. I met with a divorce lawyer, Margaret Chen, a sharp, compassionate woman who specialized in high-conflict cases. This is complicated, she explained. David fostered Sophia, but there's no blood relation. Legally, their relationship isn't prohibited, but morally. She didn't need to finish. I changed the locks. I packed David's belongings, boxing up 11 years of shared life. I contacted Sophia's college advisor, explaining she needed to find alternative housing. I sat in the empty rooms of my house, the silence screaming louder than any argument. The worst part was the grief, not just for my marriage, but for the loss of Sophia. I'd lost a husband and a sister in the same betrayal. The complexity of that pain was staggering. Some days I wanted to scream at David. Others, I wanted to shake Sophia and ask how she could betray the person who'd been her only real family. Immediate aftermath, detailed timeline. Night 1. After they left, I sat in the dark living room until dawn, surrounded by the ghosts of our life together. At 6 a.m., I called Margaret Chen. Day 2. Margaret arrived with paperwork. We spent 5 hours documenting assets, debts, and the at-fault nature of David's actions. The foster sister aspect complicates things, she warned. David's lawyer will argue consent, no blood relation. Day 3. I changed the locks. The locksmith, a kind older man named Joe, patted my shoulder. Sometimes, sweetheart, the locks are for keeping the right people in as much as the wrong ones out. Day 4. I packed David's belongings. Each item was a knife twist. His favorite coffee mug, the sweater I bought him in Paris, his collection of first edition poetry books. I boxed them methodically, labeling each David Office, David Clothing, David Sentimental. The last box broke me. It contained his old baseball glove, a photo of us at the Grand Canyon, and the mix CD I made him when we were dating. Day 5. Sophia's advisor called. She's withdrawn from all classes, Dr. Evans said. Says she needs time. Do you know what's going on? I gave a sanitized version. Family emergency. Day 6. David's first email arrived. Ellie, please, we need to talk. Sophia's devastated. Can we meet? I deleted it. Day 7. The house was too quiet. I drove to the lake and sat for hours watching ducks skim the water. A woman walked by with 2 golden retrievers. For a fleeting moment, I envied her uncomplicated life. Week 2, I started therapy with Dr. Aisha Sharma. Betrayal trauma is profound, she said, especially when it involves multiple people you trusted. The grief is layered. I cried through the entire session. Week 3, David's lawyer contacted Margaret. My client requests temporary custody of the marital home. Margaret laughed. Not a chance. Week 4, I received a letter from Sophia. Ellie, I'm staying with a friend. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. You were the best sister I ever had. I burned it in the sink. Legal battle, expanded details. The divorce proceedings became a war. David's lawyer, Alan Briggs, a shark in a suit, argued that David's relationship with Sophia was a consensual adult relationship that developed naturally. He painted me as unstable, jealous, controlling. Mrs. Whitmore cannot accept that her husband has formed a new connection, Briggs argued in court. She's retaliating by trying to destroy his career and reputation. Margaret countered with the PI's evidence, the hotel receipts, the audio recordings, the financial trail of David's secret spending. She called witnesses. Marcus Reed testified about the surveillance and evidence collection. Dr. Evans confirmed Sophia's sudden withdrawal from classes and emotional distress. Rebecca described my state after discovering the betrayal. Me, I took the stand for 2 days. Briggs tried to paint me as vindictive, but Margaret's questions let me tell the full story. How long did you know Sophia? 5 years, since she was 18. How would you describe your relationship with her? Like a sister. I helped her apply to college, taught her to drive, held her when she cried about her bio mom. I loved her. When did you first suspect something was wrong? 6 months ago. Little things at first. David working late, Sophia withdrawing. Then the perfume, the text messages. How did you feel when you discovered the truth? Like my world ended. Like the 2 people I trusted most had conspired to destroy me. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Rivera, listened intently. When Briggs argued that David and Sophia's relationship wasn't illegal, Rivera interrupted. Counselor, morality and legality are 2 different things. While this court deals in statutes, the ethical breach here is staggering. She awarded me the house, 60 of our assets, and substantial alimony. David would retain his retirement accounts, but pay Sophia's tuition until she graduated. Emotional breakdown. Added scene. One night, a month after they left, I found Sophia's favorite coffee mug in the back of a cabinet. It was chipped, with a cartoon cat saying, "I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right." Sophia had bought it at a thrift shop, laughing as she showed me. "It's us, Ellie," she'd said, "when we debate poetry." I gripped the mug, my knuckles white, and threw it against the wall. It shattered into 100 pieces. I sank to the floor, surrounded by ceramic shards, and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. The grief wasn't just for David or Sophia. It was for the sisterhood I'd cherished, for the family I'd built, for the naive woman who believed love could conquer all. When Rebecca found me hours later, I was still on the floor, clutching a shard of the mug like a talisman. "I don't know who I am anymore," I whispered. My whole identity was wrapped up in being David's wife, Sophia's sister. Who am I without them? Rebecca held me as I shook. "You're Ellie," she said firmly. "You're strong, kind, brilliant. You're my sister. You'll find your way." Chapter 5. The First Steps Forward. 3 months after D-Day, as I'd come to call it, I started therapy with Dr. Aisha Sharma. Betrayal trauma is profound, she explained during our first session, especially when it involves multiple people you trusted. The grief is layered. I began the painful work of untangling my identity from David and Sophia. Who was I without them? I'd been David's wife for 11 years, Sophia's champion for 5. Without those roles, I felt unmoored. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. Lila, a vibrant travel writer. Thomas, a thoughtful literature professor. May, a fierce environmental lawyer. They gathered in my kitchen, now stripped of David and Sophia's presence, filling it with laughter and solidarity. One afternoon, while sorting through boxes in the attic, I found my old journals from college. Inside were poems I'd written, stories I'd started, dreams I'd abandoned when I'd put my creative aspirations on hold to support David's career. As I flipped through the pages, a spark ignited in my chest. Passion. Purpose. Me. I enrolled in a writing workshop at the local community center. The first session was terrifying, sharing my work with strangers, exposing my vulnerabilities. But the instructor, a published novelist named Julian, saw potential in my raw, emotional prose. "You write with honesty," he said. "Don't lose that." I began writing about my experience, not as revenge, but as catharsis. I wrote about the slow unraveling of trust, the complexity of loving someone who betrayed you, the grief of losing a sister and a husband in the same moment. Each word was a step toward reclaiming my voice. Therapy journey. Detailed sessions. Dr. Aisha Sharma's office smelled of lavender and chamomile. Soft light filtered through sheer curtains, illuminating her kind face. In our first session, I sat rigidly, clutching a tissue. "Tell me about the betrayal," she said gently. I described the discovery, the evidence, the confrontation. When I got to Sophia's role, my voice cracked. She was like my sister. I loved her. Aisha nodded. The complexity of losing both a spouse and a sister in the same betrayal is profound. It's a double attachment wound. What does that mean? It means your brain is processing 2 significant attachment ruptures simultaneously. The grief will be layered, the recovery more complex. Over weeks, we unpacked my identity crisis. "Who were you before David and Sophia?" Aisha asked. I thought back. A writer, a poet, someone who believed in love and family. And who are you now? Broken, lost, angry. Anger is a valid response, Aisha said, but it's also a shield. What's underneath it? The question unlocked something. Grief, I whispered. Profound grief. For the life I thought I had. For the sister I lost. For the naive girl who believed in forever. We explored my patterns, my tendency to caretake, my fear of conflict, my habit of ignoring red flags. You trusted completely, Aisha observed. That's a beautiful quality, but it left you vulnerable. Should I stop trusting people? No. But you can develop discernment. Trust your gut when something feels off. One pivotal session focused on forgiveness. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? Aisha asked. Not now, I said immediately. Maybe never. Forgiveness isn't for them, Aisha replied. It's for you. It's releasing the poison so it doesn't keep hurting you. I'm not ready, I admitted, and that's okay. Absolutely, Aisha said. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days, the grief will overwhelm you. Honor both. Rediscovering writing, expanded process. The community center's writing workshop met in a basement room with fluorescent lights and mismatched chairs. 12 people sat in a circle, notebooks open. Julian, A lanky man with kind eyes and ink-stained fingers welcomed us. "We're here to tell the truth," he said. "On the page and with ourselves. Our first assignment. Write about a secret." I wrote about the night I found the evidence. My hands shook as I wrote, tears blurring the page. When it was my turn to share, my voice trembled. I discovered my husband was having an affair with his foster sister, the girl I thought of as my sister. Silence fell over the room. Julian nodded slowly. "That's a powerful truth, Eleanor. Thank you for trusting us with it." After class, Julian approached me. "You have a raw, honest voice. Have you considered writing about this experience?" "I've been journaling," I admitted. "But publishing it? Terrifying." "Sometimes the most terrifying stories are the most important," he said. I began writing daily. At first, it was just for me. Pages of rage, grief, confusion. Gradually, it evolved into something more structured. I wrote about the slow erosion of trust, the moments I dismissed, the final discovery. I wrote about Sophia's arrival, our sisterhood, its destruction. I wrote about David, the man I loved, the man who betrayed me. The words flowed like water breaking through a dam. Reconnecting with friends. Added scenes. Lila arrived with takeout Thai food and a bottle of wine. "We're eating in the kitchen tonight," she announced, setting up on the island where David and Sophia used to study. As we ate, she talked about her recent trip to Patagonia. "The mountains there make you feel small," she said, "in a good way, like your problems aren't the center of the universe." Thomas came over for coffee. He brought a book of Mary Oliver poems. "I remember you loved her," he said, flipping to Wild Geese. He read aloud, "You do not have to be good. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." Tears streamed down my face. "I don't know what I love anymore," I whispered. Thomas squeezed my hand. "You will. You're rediscovering yourself. That's sacred work." May organized a kitchen renovation party. We painted the walls a sunny yellow, replaced the cabinet hardware, hung new curtains. "This room needs new energy," May said, roller in hand. As we worked, we talked about everything: politics, books, our hopes. For the first time in months, I laughed until my sides hurt. That night, I sat in my transformed kitchen, feeling a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. First writing success. Detailed. Julian encouraged me to submit a piece to a literary magazine. "Try The Sun," he said. "They publish personal essays." I spent weeks refining a piece about the complexity of losing a sister and a husband simultaneously. I titled it Double Betrayal. The rejection email arrived a month later. While powerful, this doesn't fit our current needs. I cried, then submitted to another magazine. Another rejection. Julian kept encouraging. "Every rejection is proof you're putting your work out there," he said. Finally, Granta accepted the piece. When Julian called to tell me, I dropped the phone. "They want it," he said when I called back. "They're paying $500. The money didn't matter. The validation did. Someone wanted to publish my truth. The piece published in the winter issue. I bought a dozen copies, handing them out to friends. Lila cried when she read it. "This is so brave, Ellie." Thomas framed his copy. "This belongs on a wall." The response was unexpected. Emails poured in from readers who had experienced similar betrayals. "Your piece made me feel less alone," one wrote. "Thank you for putting words to my pain. I realized my story wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who had ever loved and lost, who'd ever had to rebuild from ruins." Chapter 6. The Legal Maze. The divorce proceedings were brutal. David, through his lawyer, contested the division of assets, claiming Sophia's emotional needs had strained our marriage. I wanted to scream, "You cheated with your foster sister." But Margaret advised restraint. "Let the evidence speak for itself," she said, calmly. We had the PI's report, financial records showing David's spending on Sophia, testimony from friends who'd noticed their inappropriate closeness. Sophia's presence complicated everything. She sent me emails, pleading letters left in my mailbox. "I never meant to hurt you, Ellie. You're the only family I've ever known." I wanted to respond, to ask how she could do this, but Margaret warned against any contact. The breaking point came during mediation. David sat across the table from me, his eyes red-rimmed. "Ellie, please. Sophia and I are in love. We want to build a life together." "At my expense?" I interrupted, my voice trembling with rage. "You destroyed our marriage. You betrayed my trust. You violated the sanctity of our home. And now you want me to what? Bless your relationship with the girl I thought of as my sister?" "It's not like that," David insisted. "Sophia and I have a real connection." "You had a connection with a vulnerable teenager you were supposed to protect," I shouted, losing control. "That's not love, David. That's exploitation. That's abuse of power." The mediator intervened, but the damage was done. David's lawyer proposed a settlement that would leave me financially secure. I signed the papers with a steady hand, feeling nothing but relief when it was over. Legal strategy. Detailed tactics. Margaret Chen's office was a fortress of law books and case files. She sat behind her desk, a steaming cup of tea before her, studying David's financial records. "He's hiding assets," she said, tapping a spreadsheet. "These business expenses don't add up." Over weeks, Margaret built an airtight case. Forensic accounting. She hired a specialist who traced David's secret accounts. He'd siphoned off $75,000 over 2 years, funneling it to a hidden account. Character witnesses. Margaret tracked down David's former assistant, who testified about his inappropriate closeness with Sophia. He called her his work wife, the assistant said. I thought it was weird, since she was his foster sister. Expert testimony. Dr. Sharma provided a statement about betrayal trauma and the power dynamics in foster-sibling relationships. Surveillance enhancement. Marcus Reed obtained additional footage showing David and Sophia at multiple hotels, restaurants, and even a couple's counseling session. The mediation room was cold, sterile. David sat opposite me, flanked by Briggs. I had Margaret and my strength. Briggs opened. My client acknowledges the relationship was poorly timed, but it was between two consenting adults. Mrs. Whitmore's refusal to accept this has caused unnecessary emotional distress. Margaret's rebuttal was surgical. Poorly timed? Mr. Whitmore began grooming this vulnerable young woman when she was 16 years old. He was her guardian, her foster brother, her brother-in-law. This wasn't an affair. It was a profound abuse of trust and power. David broke. That's not true, he shouted. I never... Margaret cut him off. Then explain these. She spread photos across the table. David kissing Sophia at 16, 17, 18, each more intimate than the last. David paled. The settlement was generous. The house, 60 of assets, 8,000 month alimony for 10 years. David kept his retirement accounts, but paid all of Sophia's tuition and living expenses until she graduated. I signed without hesitation. As I left the mediation room, David caught my arm. Ellie, please. I shook him off. We're done, David. Forever. Sophia's letters. Expanded content. The letters arrived weekly, always in Sophia's looping handwriting. I kept them in a shoebox under my bed, unread. One rainy Tuesday, I finally opened them. Letter 1. Ellie, I'm staying with a friend from school. I'm so sorry for everything. You were the best sister I ever had. I never meant to hurt you. David says we'll explain everything soon. I hope you can forgive me someday. Sophia, letter 3. Ellie, David says you're not responding. I understand why. I'm withdrawing from my classes this semester. I can't focus. I keep thinking about you, about our movie nights, about how you taught me to bake your famous chocolate chip cookies. I miss you so much. Sophia, letter 5. Ellie, David, and I found an apartment. It's small, but it's ours. I wish you could see it. I wish you could understand that we didn't plan this. It just happened. I know that sounds like an excuse, but it's true. I loved you like a sister. I still do, but I love David too. I hope someday you can be happy for us. Sophia. Letter 8. Ellie, I'm failing my classes. David is stressed about work. We fight all the time. Maybe you were right. Maybe this was a mistake, but I can't leave him. He's all I have. I wish I still had you. Sophia. The letters painted a picture of a confused, guilt-ridden young woman. I felt a flicker of pity, but no forgiveness. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. Emotional impact. Added scene. The day the divorce was finalized, I went to the lake where David proposed. I sat on the same bench, the final decree in my lap. The words, dissolution of marriage, seemed so inadequate for what had been destroyed. I wasn't just dissolving a marriage. I was mourning the death of a sister, the loss of trust, the end of the person I used to be. A family walked by, father, mother, 2 young children laughing. The father lifted the little girl onto his shoulders. She squealed with delight. I watched them, tears streaming down my face. That could have been me. David and I had planned for children. We'd picked out names. Lily for a girl, James for a boy. Now those names belonged to a ghost life, a future that would never exist. I folded the decree carefully and placed it in my bag. As I stood to leave, I noticed a single wildflower growing through a crack in the pavement. It was small, fragile, but undeniably alive. I knelt to look at it, its yellow petals bright against the gray concrete. Something about its resilience pierced my grief. If this flower could grow through concrete, maybe I could grow through the ruins of my marriage. Maybe. Chapter 7. The Writing Cure. Writing became my lifeline. I spent hours at my desk, pouring my pain onto the page. What began as journaling evolved into a memoir, a raw, unflinching account of betrayal and its aftermath. Julian, my writing instructor, encouraged me to submit pieces to literary magazines. Your voice is unique, he said, honest, vulnerable, powerful. To my surprise, several were published. Readers wrote to me, sharing their own stories of betrayal, thanking me for putting words to their pain. One email stayed with me. Your article about losing a sister and a husband in the same betrayal made me feel less alone. I'm going through something similar with my best friend and my partner. Thank you for your courage. The response was overwhelming. I realized my experience, while uniquely painful, resonated with others who'd faced complex betrayals. I wasn't just healing myself, I was helping others feel seen. Memoir development, detailed process. The memoir began as scattered journal entries. Gradually, I shaped them into a narrative. I wrote about the early years, meeting David, falling in love, building a life together. Sophia's arrival, the hope, the challenges, the formation of our sisterhood, the first signs, the small moments that nagged at me, the intuition I ignored, the discovery, the PI's evidence, the confrontation, the immediate aftermath. The legal battle, the stress, the strategy, the final settlement, the healing journey, therapy, reconnecting with friends, rediscovering writing. Julian was my guide. This needs more vulnerability, he'd say, marking up a manuscript page. Show us your fear, your doubt, your moments of weakness. I resisted at first. I wanted to appear strong, in control. But Julian insisted, readers connect with authenticity, not perfection. Slowly, I dug deeper. I wrote about the nights I cried myself to sleep, the days I couldn't get out of bed, the moments I hated David, the moments I missed him, the times I pitied Sophia, the times I wanted to scream at her. I wrote about the shame, the feeling that somehow this was my fault. If I'd been a better wife, a more attentive sister, would this have happened? The breakthrough came when I wrote about Sophia's journal entries. I included them verbatim, then added my own commentary. Reading her words, I felt a complex mix of anger and sadness. Here was this girl I'd loved like a sister, admitting her guilt, her confusion, her twisted love. I wanted to shake her, to hug her, to scream at her, but mostly I wanted to understand. How could she betray me like this? How could David? The answer, I realized, was complicated. It was about power, vulnerability, unmet needs, and the messy, painful reality of human hearts. Julian read that passage and nodded. That's it, Ellie. That's the vulnerability that will resonate. Reader response. Expanded examples. The memoir's publication changed everything. Fostered Shadows hit bestseller lists within weeks. The response was overwhelming. Email from a reader in Chicago. Dear Eleanor, I read your book in one sitting, crying through most of it. My husband left me for my best friend last year. Reading about your experience made me feel less alone. The part about losing both a spouse and a sister in the same betrayal, that was my story too. Thank you for putting words to this pain. You've given me hope that healing is possible. Sincerely, Megan. Email from a social worker in Atlanta. Ms. Whitmore, I work with foster youth and wanted to thank you for shining a light on the vulnerabilities in our system. The power dynamics you describe between David and Sophia are all too common. Your book has inspired me to advocate for better training and oversight for foster parents and guardians. You've not only helped individuals heal, you've potentially changed systems. Respectfully, Jamal. Email from a therapist in Seattle, Eleanor. I'm recommending your book to clients who've experienced complex betrayal trauma. Your description of the double attachment wound is spot on. The way you've woven your personal story with broader insights about trust, forgiveness, and resilience is masterful. Thank you for this gift to the healing community. In gratitude, Dr. Karen Wright. Each email reminded me that my pain had purpose. By sharing my story, I was helping others navigate their own darkness. Media attention? Added scenes. The media frenzy was overwhelming. Good Morning America invited me on to discuss the book. I sat across from Robin Roberts, my hands trembling. The response has been incredible, she said. Why do you think your story resonates so deeply? I took a breath. I think betrayal is universal. But the complexity of losing both a spouse and a sister in the same betrayal, that's something many people experience but rarely talk about. By sharing my story, I hope to give voice to that silent pain. The interview aired, and sales skyrocketed. People magazine featured me in their Heroes Among Us issue. The New York Times reviewed the book. Whitmore's memoir is a searing account of betrayal and rebuilding. Her unflinching honesty about the complexities of love, trust, and forgiveness makes this not just a personal story, but a universal one. One afternoon, I received a call from Oprah's producer. They wanted to feature Fostered Shadows on her book club. I almost dropped the phone. "Oprah?" I whispered. "Yes," the producer said. "She read your book and was deeply moved. She'd like to meet you." A week later, I sat in Oprah's studio, surrounded by cameras. She held my book, her expression thoughtful. "Eleanor," she said, her voice warm, "your story is so powerful. What do you hope readers take from it?" I thought for a moment. I hope they take away that healing is possible even after profound betrayal. That our scars don't have to define us, that we can rebuild something beautiful from the ruins. Oprah nodded. "And that's exactly what you've done." The audience erupted in applause. In that moment, I felt the full weight of my journey, from brokenness to wholeness, from silence to voice, from victim to survivor. Chapter 8. The unexpected support expanded with 65,000 new characters. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a call from Sophia's social worker, Maria. "Sophia's struggling," she said gently. "She's been hospitalized. Depression. Suicidal ideation. She's asking for you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect my fragile peace. But another part, the part that had loved Sophia like a sister, couldn't turn away. I visited her in the psychiatric ward. She looked small, broken, nothing like the vibrant young woman I'd known. "Ellie," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I never meant—" "I know," I said, my voice softer than I expected. "But why, Sophia? After everything I did for you?" She looked down at her hands. "David was always there for me. When no one else wanted me, he took me in. I loved him for that. Then things changed. I started seeing him differently. When he kissed me last Christmas, I didn't stop him. I should have, but I didn't." "Did you ever think about me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "About what this would do to me?" "Every day," she sobbed. "That's why I'm here. I can't live with the guilt. I destroyed the only real family I ever had." I didn't forgive her that day, but I listened. And in listening, I began to understand the complexity of her position. Her gratitude to David, her confusion about their relationship, her fear of losing the only stability she'd ever known. Hospital visit, detailed scene. The psychiatric ward smelled of antiseptic and despair. Maria led me down a sterile hallway to a small room. Sophia sat in a chair by the window, staring at nothing. She'd lost weight, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. When she saw me, she flinched. "Ellie," she whispered, "thank you for coming." I nodded, taking a seat across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick with everything unsaid. Finally, Sophia looked up, tears welling. "I'm so sorry, Ellie. For everything." "Why?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Why did you do it?" Sophia twisted her hands in her lap. It started so gradually. David was always my hero. He saved me from the system, from foster homes that didn't want me. When I was 16, I had a nightmare about my bio mom. David held me until I stopped crying. That night, I looked at him differently, not as a brother, but as a man. She paused, wiping her eyes. I tried to ignore it. I dated boys my age, but it never felt right. Then, last Christmas, after everyone left, David kissed me under the mistletoe. I should have stopped him, I know that, but I didn't. Because part of me wanted it. Part of me had wanted it for years. I listened, my heart a complicated mix of anger and sadness. "What about me, Sophia? What about our sisterhood?" Sophia's face crumpled. "That's the worst part. I loved you like a sister. I still do. But I love David too. I convinced myself we could have both, that you'd understand eventually. How stupid was that? Not stupid, I said quietly. Human, confused. Sophia looked at me, hope flickering in her eyes. Can you ever forgive me? I considered the question. Not today, I said honestly. Maybe not ever, but I'm listening. That's something. Sophia's recovery, expanded timeline. Sophia's hospitalization lasted 3 weeks. I visited twice more, each time listening as she unpacked her guilt, her confusion, her twisted love for David. She revealed details that made my blood run cold. The grooming. David had been giving her expensive gifts since she was 16. Jewelry, designer clothes, electronics. He said it was because I was special, Sophia admitted. Now I see it was manipulation. The isolation. David had gradually turned her against me. He'd say things like, Ellie doesn't really understand you like I do, or Ellie's too busy with her own life to care about your problems. I started believing him. The first kiss, it happened after Sophia failed an important exam. I was crying in my room. David came in to comfort me. 1 minute he was hugging me, the next he was kissing me. I didn't stop him. I didn't want to. When Sophia was discharged, she moved into a transitional living program for young adults with mental health challenges. I agreed to attend family therapy sessions with her, facilitated by Maria. In our first session, Sophia broke down. I miss you so much, Ellie. I miss our movie nights, our baking sessions, our talks. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. I reached across the table and took her hand. I miss those things too, I admitted. But the sister I knew wouldn't have betrayed me like that. The sister I knew is gone. Sophia nodded, tears streaming. I know. I hate who I became. I'm trying to find my way back to the person you loved. Maybe, I said softly, maybe we both are. David's reaction, added scene. David called me after Sophia's hospitalization. His voice was rough, desperate. Ellie, please. Sophia needs you. I need you. Can we talk? I met him in a neutral coffee shop. He looked terrible thin, tired, his eyes shadowed with guilt. How is she? I asked. Not good, he admitted. She's barely eating. She has nightmares every night. The doctors say she's experiencing severe depression with suicidal ideation. I sipped my coffee, waiting. I never meant for this to happen, Ellie, David said, running a hand through his hair. I swear, I loved you. I still do. But Sophia, she was so vulnerable, so broken. I wanted to protect her. Somewhere along the way, that protection became something else. Something else, I repeated, my voice cold. You call exploiting a vulnerable teenager something else? David flinched. It wasn't like that. Not at first. It was just feelings. Confusing, complicated feelings. Feelings you acted on, I pointed out. Feelings that destroyed our marriage, traumatized Sophia, and shattered multiple lives. David nodded, tears welling. I know. I see that now. I'm in therapy, Ellie, trying to understand why I did what I did. I hate myself for it. I studied him, searching for sincerity. What about Sophia? Are you still together? David hesitated. We're taking space. She needs to heal. So do I. But I love her, Ellie. I do. I stood to leave. I hope you both find healing, David, but that healing doesn't include me, ever. As I walked away, David called after me. Thank you for seeing Sophia. It means everything to her. I didn't turn around. Some doors, once closed, can never be reopened. Chapter 9. The Book Deal. My memoir caught the attention of an editor at a major publishing house. Your story is powerful, she said over lunch, But it needs more depth, more about your relationship with Sophia, more about the foster care system, more about the aftermath. I spent the next year expanding the manuscript. I interviewed former foster children, social workers, therapists. I researched the psychological dynamics of foster sibling relationships. I dug deeper into my own experience, examining not just David and Sophia's betrayal, but my own blind spots, my need to be needed, my fear of seeing what was right in front of me. The book, titled Fostered Shadows, a memoir of betrayal and rebuilding, was published to critical acclaim. Reviews praised its unflinching honesty and nuanced exploration of complex family bonds. It became a bestseller, resonating with readers who'd experienced their own betrayals, their own complicated family dynamics. I went on a book tour, speaking at bookstores and universities. At each event, people approached me with tears in their eyes, sharing their stories. "Your book gave me the courage to leave my own toxic relationship," one woman said. "Thank you for helping me find my voice." Manuscript expansion, detailed research. The expansion process was grueling but illuminating. I spent months interviewing foster youth. Marcus, 19. My foster dad started being weird when I turned 15. Complimenting my body, walking in on me changing. I told my social worker, but she didn't believe me. Eventually, I ran away. Jasmine, 21. My foster brother and I got close after his mom died. We started dating when I was 17. Everyone said it was wrong, but we didn't care. Now we're married with a kid. Still, people judge us. Diego, 18. I was placed with my foster sister when I was 12. We were raised like siblings. When I was 16, she came on to me. It messed with my head for years. These conversations revealed patterns, power imbalances, blurred boundaries, emotional manipulation. They also showed that not all foster sibling relationships were abusive. Some were genuine, if complicated, love stories. Consulting experts, Dr. Lisa Chen, psychologist, foster sibling relationships occupy a unique psychological space. They're not bound by blood, but they're often raised as siblings. When romantic feelings develop, it creates cognitive dissonance. The brain struggles to reconcile sibling with romantic partner. Maria Rodriguez, social worker. The system fails these kids in so many ways. We place them in homes without adequate screening, without proper training for foster parents. Then we're surprised when boundaries get crossed. Reverend Michael Thompson, ethics professor. Morality isn't always black and white. While David's actions were clearly unethical, the situation highlights gray areas in how we define family, love, and appropriate relationships. Personal reflection, the hardest part was examining my own role. I wrote about my need to be needed, how I'd poured myself into caring for Sophia, sometimes at the expense of my own needs in marriage. I wrote about my fear of conflict, how I'd ignored red flags because I didn't want to rock the boat. I wrote about my blind spots, how I'd seen David as a hero, Sophia as a victim, missing the complexity of their relationship. One passage that was particularly difficult to write: I wanted to be the perfect wife, the perfect sister. I wanted to save Sophia, to prove my goodness, my worth. In doing so, I missed the signs that were right in front of me. I missed David's lingering touches, Sophia's confusion, the growing intimacy between them. Was I willfully blind, or was I simply too focused on my own narrative of being a savior to see the truth? The answer, I've come to realize, is both. I was blind, and I chose not to see. That's a painful truth to sit with, but it's mine. Publishing process. Expanded details. The publishing journey was a roller coaster. My editor, Sarah, was brilliant but demanding. "This section needs more vulnerability," she'd say, marking up a manuscript. "We need to feel your fear, your doubt." The revision process took 6 months, structural edits, moving chapters around for better flow, adding sections about the foster care system, deepening the psychological exploration, line edits, polishing sentences, strengthening metaphors, ensuring consistency in voice, copy edits, catching typos, grammatical errors, factual inconsistencies, proofreading, final pass before printing. Each round brought the book closer to its final form. Sarah and I worked late nights, fueled by coffee and determination. "This is going to change lives," she said during one marathon session. "People need this story." The cover design was crucial. We went through dozens of concepts before settling on the final image, a shadow of 2 figures embracing, with a single ray of light breaking through. "It represents the darkness of betrayal and the hope of healing," Sarah explained. Book tour, expanded experiences. The book tour was exhilarating and exhausting. I visited 20 cities in 30 days, speaking at bookstores, universities, and community centers. Each event was unique. New York, a packed bookstore in Greenwich Village. The audience was engaged, asking thoughtful questions about forgiveness and healing. One woman stood up and said, "Your book saved my marriage. After reading it, my husband and I finally talked about the betrayal in our past. We're in counseling now, working things out." Chicago, a university auditorium filled with social work students. Their questions focused on the foster care system. "What changes would you make?" one student asked. I spoke about better training for foster parents, more support for foster youth, clearer boundaries in foster homes. San Francisco, a small independent bookstore. The intimacy of the space led to deep sharing. A man in his 60s stood up, tears in his eyes. "My wife left me for my brother 20 years ago," he said. "I've never talked about it. Your book gave me the courage to start healing." Seattle, a large community center. After my talk, a young woman approached me hesitantly. "I'm Sophia," she whispered. "Not your Sophia, but another one. My foster brother and I. We had a relationship like yours. It ended badly. Your book helped me understand what happened to me." At each stop, I was humbled by the impact of my story. I wasn't just sharing my pain, I was creating space for others to share theirs. Critical acclaim, added reviews. The reviews were overwhelmingly positive. The Washington Post, "Whitmore's memoir is a masterclass in vulnerability. She doesn't shy away from the messy, painful realities of betrayal, nor does she offer easy answers. Instead, she invites readers into the complex terrain of forgiveness, healing, and rebuilding." This is more than a memoir. It's a roadmap for anyone who's ever loved and lost. NPR. Fostered Shadows is both deeply personal and universally resonant. Whitmore's exploration of the foster care system adds necessary context to her personal story, elevating it from a tale of individual betrayal to a critique of systemic failures. Her writing is raw, honest, and ultimately hopeful. O Magazine, Oprah's book club selection. Fostered Shadows is a searing account of betrayal and resilience. Whitmore's courage in sharing her story is matched only by her compassion for herself, for her betrayers, and for all who've experienced similar pain. This book will change how you think about love, trust, and forgiveness. Psychology Today. From a psychological perspective, Fostered Shadows offers invaluable insights into betrayal trauma, attachment wounds, and the complex dynamics of foster sibling relationships. Whitmore's willingness to examine her own blind spots makes this a rare and important contribution to the literature on healing. Chapter 10. The New Beginning. 2 years after D-Day, I stood in the kitchen of my new home, a cozy bungalow with a writing nook overlooking a garden I'd planted with native flowers. My memoir had changed my life, bringing financial security and a sense of purpose I'd never known. I'd started a foundation for foster youth, providing mentorship and support for those aging out of the system. Sophia, now stable and in therapy, had volunteered to help. We'd developed a cautious, respectful relationship, no longer sisters, but two people working toward the same goal. David had moved across the country with Sophia. From mutual friends, I heard they were struggling. Their relationship, built on betrayal, had proven unstable. I felt a pang of sadness, but no desire to intervene. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, my phone rang. It was Thomas, my literature professor friend. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," he said. "A colleague from the university. She's been through her own ordeal divorce after discovering her husband was having an affair with her research assistant." I hesitated. "Thomas, I'm not sure I'm ready." "Just coffee," he said gently. "As friends?" I agreed. The next week, I met Dr. Lena Rossi, a brilliant astrophysicist with warm eyes and a quiet strength. We talked for hours about our work, our healing journeys, our complicated relationships with trust. There was no pressure, no expectation, just two people who understood the landscape of betrayal and rebuilding. As I walked home that evening, I felt something unfamiliar hope. Not for a new relationship, but for the possibility of connection, of trust rebuilt, slowly, carefully, intentionally. The betrayal had shattered my world, but in rebuilding, I'd discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. I'd found my voice, my purpose, myself. And that, I realized, was more than enough. New home. Detailed description. The bungalow was everything my old house wasn't. Cozy, intimate, entirely mine. I found it 3 months after the divorce finalized, tucked away on a quiet street lined with oak trees. The realtor, a kind woman named Patricia, showed me around with enthusiasm. "It needs some work," she admitted, "but it has good bones. And look at this." She led me to a sunroom at the back of the house. Windows lined 3 walls overlooking a wild, overgrown garden. This would make a perfect writing space. I bought it that day. Over the next months, I made it my own. Kitchen. Painted a warm butter yellow with open shelving displaying my grandmother's pottery. Living room. Comfortable sofas in deep blue, a stone fireplace, bookshelves overflowing with poetry and literature. Writing. Nook. In the sunroom, a large desk facing the garden, a comfortable armchair for reading, a small table for my tea. Garden? I hired a landscaper to help me design a native plant, garden cone flowers, black-eyed Susans, milkweed for the butterflies. A small stone path wound through the flowers, leading to a bench under a redbud tree. The first night I slept there, I woke to birdsong. I made coffee in my yellow kitchen, sitting at the table with my journal. For the first time in years, I felt entirely at peace. This space was mine. This life was mine. Foundation development, expanded mission. Fostered futures began as a small idea in my journal. I wrote, what if I could help other Sophias? What if I could create a support system for foster youth aging out of the system? With the advance from my book, I made it happen. Mentorship program. Matching foster youth with adult mentors who'd been through the system. Sophia became one of our first mentors, sharing her story with honesty and vulnerability. Transitional housing. Purchasing a small apartment building where youth could live affordably while attending college or starting careers. Educational support, scholarships, tutoring, college application assistance. Mental health services, on-site counseling, support groups, trauma-informed care. Life skills. training, financial literacy, cooking classes, job readiness workshops. Sophia's involvement was crucial. She brought a unique perspective as someone who'd experienced both the foster care system and the consequences of inappropriate relationships. "I can help these kids avoid the mistakes I made," she told me during one of our planning meetings. "I can show them that there's a better way." Our relationship remained professional, but it was built on mutual respect. We weren't sisters anymore, but we were allies in a shared mission. Meeting Lena. Detailed scene. The coffee shop was quiet that Tuesday afternoon. Thomas waved me over to a corner table where a woman sat with her back to me. As I approached, she turned, and our eyes met. Lena Rossi had dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, glasses perched on her nose, and eyes the color of warm honey. "Eleanor, this is Lena Rossi," Thomas said. "Lena, this is Eleanor Whitmore, the author I was telling you about." Lena smiled, and it transformed her face, serious scholar, to warm, approachable woman. "It's an honor to meet you," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I read Fostered Shadows last month. It's extraordinary." "Thank you," I said, taking a seat. "Thomas tells me you're an astrophysicist." Lena nodded. "I study black holes, the ultimate betrayal of light." She smiled wryly. "Maybe that's why your book resonated with me." We talked easily about our work, our healing journeys, our complicated relationships with trust. Lena shared her story. Married to a fellow physicist for 12 years, discovered he was having an affair with her research assistant, now navigating divorce and rebuilding her life. "The betrayal was devastating," she admitted, stirring her coffee. "But the loss of trust in my own judgment, that's what really broke me." "I know that feeling," I said. I kept asking myself, how did I not see? How did I not know? Lena nodded. "Exactly. And the answer, I've come to realize, is that we see what we're prepared to see. I wasn't prepared to see my husband's betrayal. You weren't prepared to see David's." We talked for 2 hours until the coffee shop closed. As we walked out, Lena hesitated. "I don't want to overstep, but would you like to have dinner sometime? As friends?" I considered it. The old me would have panicked, would have made excuses. The new me, the healed me, saw possibility. "I'd like that," I said. Developing relationship. Expanded timeline. Lena and I moved slowly, intentionally. Month 1. Coffee dates, long walks by the lake, conversations about everything and nothing. Lena never pressured me, never crossed boundaries. She was simply present, listening, sharing her own vulnerabilities. Month 2, dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. Lena told me about her research on black holes, her eyes lighting up with passion. I found myself captivated, not just by her intelligence, but by her kindness, her thoughtfulness, her respect for my pace. Month 3, we attended a poetry reading together. During intermission, Lena took my hand. "Is this okay?" she asked softly. I squeezed her hand. More than okay. Month 4, our first kiss. After dinner at my place, we sat on the porch watching the stars. Lena pointed out constellations, her voice low and soothing. When she turned to me, her eyes held question, not assumption. I leaned in, and our lips met. It was gentle, respectful, full of promise. Month 6, Lena spent the night for the first time. We didn't have sex. We simply slept in each other's arms, finding comfort in shared warmth and quiet breathing. In the morning, she made pancakes, humming softly as she cooked. I watched her, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Month 9. We said "I love you" for the first time. We were hiking in the mountains surrounded by fall colors. Lena stopped at a viewpoint, turning to me with tears in her eyes. "I never thought I'd love again after Mark," she said. But I love you, Eleanor, completely. Year 1. We moved in together. Lena brought her telescope, her books, her collection of star maps. I brought my writing desk, my grandmother's pottery, my native plant guide. We created a home that reflected both of us, intellectual and creative, scientific and artistic, logical and emotional. Year 2. Lena proposed. We were sitting on our porch, watching fireflies blink in the garden. She took my hand, her voice trembling slightly. Eleanor Whitmore, you've survived betrayal and rebuilt your life with such grace and strength. You've helped countless others find their way through darkness. I love you more than words can say. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down my face. Yes, I whispered, 1,000 times, yes. Final reflection. Added scene. 5 years after D-Day, I stood at the podium accepting a National Humanitarian Award for my work with foster youth. In the audience, Lena smiled proudly, her engagement ring catching the light. Sophia sat nearby, her expression thoughtful, respectful. In my acceptance speech, I spoke about the journey that had brought me to that moment, about the pain of betrayal, the complexity of forgiveness, the power of rebuilding. We can't always control what happens to us, I said, my voice steady. But we can control how we respond. We can let our breaks define us, or we can let them become the places where light enters. Afterward, Sophia approached me hesitantly. That was beautiful, Ellie. Thank you, I replied. I meant every word. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. I'm glad you found happiness, she said finally. You deserve it. So do you, I replied sincerely. As she walked away, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known was possible. The betrayal had shattered my world, but in rebuilding, I discovered a strength, a purpose, a love I never could have imagined otherwise. The scars remained, but they had become part of my landscape reminders of how far I'd come, testaments to my resilience. Lena joined me, taking my hand. Ready to go home? She asked. I looked at her kind eyes, her warm smile, her unwavering support. Yes, I said, smiling. I'm ready. As we walked out of the ballroom hand in hand, I thought about the girl I used to be, the naive woman who believed in perfect love, who never saw the betrayal coming. That girl was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, more authentic. Someone who knew that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, about forgiveness, about rebuilding from the ruins. The pain had been real, devastating even. But it was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one, written in my own words, on my own terms, with my own hard-won wisdom guiding each sentence. And that, I've learned through this painful, transformative journey, is more than enough.